Hey, I want to tell you a story. One day, Jesus was teaching a whole crowd of people. And there were so many, and they were crowding around. And he ended up getting on a boat that was anchored just off the shore of this lake. And that's where my story begins. That day, when evening came, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let's go to the other side." So after they dismissed the crowd, they took him like he was in a boat, and a fierce storm came up, and the waves were crashing over the boat, and it filled with water. But Jesus was asleep in the back of the boat. Well, the disciples woke him up and they said, "Master, don't you care that we're about to drown?" Well, Jesus stood up, and it says he rebuked the wind, and he told the seas, "Peace, be still." And immediately the wind quit, and the waves became absolutely calm. And Jesus turned to his disciples and he said, "Why were you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" And they were terrified. And they asked each other, "What kind of man is this, that even the winds and the waves obey him?" And that's the end of the story. But I want to tell that story again. But this time, I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to try to visualize what's happening, like a movie, and see what the boat looks like, the winds and the waves and the fear on the people, that kind of stuff. Okay? So close your eyes and just listen. That day, when evening came, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let's go to the other side." And after they had dismissed the crowd, they took Jesus like he was in the boat, and there were other boats with him. And a terrific storm came up, and the waves were crashing over the boat. It was filled with water. But Jesus was asleep in the back of the boat on a cushion. Well, the disciples woke him up, and they said, "Master, don't you care? We're about to drown." Well, Jesus stood up, and he rebuked the wind, and he said to the waves, "Peace, be still." And immediately the wind stopped, and the waters became perfectly calm. And Jesus turned to his disciples and he said, "Why were you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" Well, they were terrified at that. And they asked one another, "What kind of man is this, that even the winds and the waves obey him?" Now I want to ask you some questions about this story. Now, these disciples are mostly fishermen, and they're out on a boat, and the waves are crashing over it, and it's filling up with water. It's sinking. But Jesus is asleep on a cushion in the back of the boat. What do you learn about Jesus from that? Now, these disciples woke him up and they said, "Master, don't you care? We're about to drown." Well, most of these guys were fishermen. They probably fished on that lake. They knew what storms like that could do. Maybe they'd lost friends. Who knows? They probably certainly heard of some. Do you think it was reasonable that those disciples were afraid? It would seem so. Made sense, maybe. But did Jesus think it was reasonable that they be afraid? Because he turned to him and he asked him, "Why were you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" I had a question for you. Have you ever been afraid? I mean, really afraid? In fear for your life? Why was that? Was it reasonable? I mean, did you feel like anybody with half a brain would be afraid? So was it reasonable that you were afraid? Let me ask you something. Had Jesus been there, what would he have said to you? Thank you.